Okay, so far I have painted the top portion where these fall yellowy orange trees are surrounding the main subjects. And now I'm going to work on the horse. So far so good. I didn't want a lot of detail in the background. It's really far away. I just really wanted shapes of color, those golden yellows and orange and dark reddish brown colors. And I was even trying to kind of make it appear as if she had a little bit of a halo coming up around her. So we'll see how that goes as I start working on her a little bit more. But time for the horse. So I'm trying to work in layers where I get the background done and then I'm coming forward with each part of the painting. And so here we are with the horse. Then next I'll attack the main figure, the girl in the blue dress, and then we'll get some of this foreground going. I've got my palette here. I feel like it's organized pretty good. I've got my lights down here on the bottom, my mid values right along here, and then my dark values here. Okay, let's do it. So here we go. The first painting in the new series for me called Heading West. So yes, this is my initial dive into the Western genre of painting, which I'm super excited about. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I am now ready to take the plunge. So if you guys saw my last video, you may know that I went to Easton, Kansas for a super cool photo shoot where I got tons of reference material of these awesome cowboys on horses, some actual Native American Indians, and I am just so excited to get started. But here is one of the first paintings. It's called The Blue Dress, and I'm gonna let you take a look into how I go about creating a more formal painting. So I started with an underpainting. There's a video that goes over how I went about that. It was painted with transparent oxide red, and it was fully dry when I began to paint. And what I'm really aiming to do is, especially in the shadow areas, is I want to paint with transparent paint so that I can let some of the underpainting show through in the shadow areas. That's been done for many years. You see a lot of the master painters doing that, letting the underpainting show through in the more darker shadow areas. And that transparent oxide red really worked well with the colors in this horse. He's just so beautiful. And the time of day that I'm trying to capture here is a bright, sunny afternoon in the fall. That's why you have all these beautiful red and oranges and these golden tones shining through with strong shadows and very strong bright light areas. Okay, so it's day 3 of the painting process. We did the trees in the background day 1. Yesterday, day 2, completed the horse. Pretty close to done. And today, day 3, is figure day. So I'm gonna be working on her, and then we'll tie it all together. Probably day 4, we'll get a little bit of the foreground going and maybe finish it off. We'll see. All right, so here we go. Let's do it. Thought I'd give you a look at my palette. I'm about midway through here. So you see the image of the palette when it was first mixed. And now you see it middle of the way, and you can really tell how new colors have developed from the initial piles. I'm constantly mixing the piles together. I did add the transparent oxide brown to my palette and the transparent oxide red. I've just been putting those here each day because they do dry in one day, so I'm keeping them out of all my other colors. These were my initial colors that I mixed, and we're in day 2. I've been popping the palette in the freezer overnight and then letting it thaw out for about 30 minutes before I start to paint again. And these are some of the colors that I'm working with predominantly here. And then these two I'm using in the darkest areas of the horse. So we're just using a lot of reds and browns. Now the only medium that I've got going here is the walnut oil gel. So that comes in a tube. It's just like paint consistency, so I squeeze it out here and sometimes I put it over here. And I just dip my brush into it slightly and then grab a little bit of paint when I am needing the paint to be maybe a little bit more transparent, or just if it's a little too stiff and I want it to really flow smoothly across the painting surface, I'll grab a little bit of this walnut oil gel. You can see how it's getting a little bit dirty as I dip my brush into it, but that's okay because those colors are all jiving with what I got going on here. Now, if I'm using some of the walnut oil gel in the flesh tone on the painting, which I probably won't use any medium, I would clean a pile to make sure that I dip into a nice fresh clean pile, don't contaminate the flesh tones. But I feel like the rest of the painting, the background, the horse, those kinds of things, it doesn't really make too much difference if there's a little bit of reddish brown mixed in already. So that's it, and I have my lights at the bottom still. I'm keeping that in order, my mid values in the middle, and my dark shadow colors up top. It's just a great way to keep your palette organized, so when you're working on a painting and you know you need a mid-value color, you know you have to grab from the middle of your palette. If you're in the shadow areas, up top. If you're in the light areas, there you go. So that's my palette. Okay, it's time to paint this beautiful face. Now, half of her face, the side on the right, is getting this super bright sunlight, and it's just stopping right down the middle and moving the rest of her face into shadow. And I'm gonna punch up the reddish orange colors in the face wherever I can, and just keep the other lit side very, very opaque and bright. And I want to make sure that I keep my shadows transparent. As we said, we want that underpainting to show through a little bit there. Hey, if you're getting some value out of this video, hit that thumbs up button so I know you like it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. So this is a smaller face that I'm working on than when I'm doing my portraits, say on the 12 by 12 canvas. So it's a little bit more difficult, I find, to paint the features the way I want. Her face is 3 inches tall, so you can't really fit in too much detail because it is so small, and I don't want the painting to come off too tight either. I still want to have a painterly feel to it, yet with a pretty high degree of realism. So I'm going to continue to push and pull some of this contrast and detail until I feel like it's where I want it to be. So I may actually paint in more detail and then pull some back out, and just kind of let the feeling that I'm getting from the results of what I'm laying down guide me in whether it's too worked or too loose. But truly, my main focus while I'm painting the face is to make sure that I do not paint the shadow side too light, because that's what I tend to do. I have to constantly remind myself I am painting in a shadow. So if I make it too dark, which more than likely I won't, I can lighten it up. But for the most part, you saw I have my palette arranged so that I know if I'm dipping into that lower end of my palette, something's wrong. I'm also trying to remember some of the temperature changes that I discovered when I did the master copy of the Peter Paul Rubens Isabella Brandt. I want to use some of that temperature change to really turn the form here. So keeping the transparent paint in the shadow, the really opaque paint in the light, but using some hot color temperature, like some red, some pretty pure red and orange on that cheek and the shadow side to really help show that there's some volume there in her face. So while I continue to paint the face, I want to tell you about some really cool news that's happening in the art world. So, Sotheby's has teamed up with the Art Renewal Center in their quest to bolster the importance of realism in today's art world. So they've taken 28 works from the 15th annual Art Renewal Center Salon, and they've been chosen directly by Sotheby's for a public auction. There's also a live viewing that's going to be held in New York through July 16th to July 26th. Then the collection will travel to Barcelona, Spain in October. This is a huge win for representational artists. This public sales hosted by Sotheby's is expected to be the first of many. You can check out the stunning works that were selected for this esteemed, privileged auction on the Art Renewal Center website. I'll leave a link in the description. So I would highly recommend that you go onto the Art Renewal Center's website and look at the paintings that Sotheby's selected. So there's been this ongoing battle between artists who paint more realistically. You know, we want to paint things that definitely look like things, not this conceptual, abstract type art that has been dominating. And really, some of the prices that people have been paying for the conceptual art has just been outrageous, while the representational artists, who are just doing the most amazing work, are not making the sales like the conceptual artists were. However, several years ago, the not-for-profit Art Renewal Center got together. They've collected they have the biggest collection of representational artwork in the world, I believe. I mean, it's just amazing, the collection they have. So many Bouguereaus and even living masters they've collected. And not to mention, they have collected several of the paintings from my mentor, Tina Garrett, who is one of the artists. There's only been 28 artworks selected out of thousands. Her painting, Bravado, was selected to be in the auction. It's amazing. I'm so excited for her. I'm so proud of her. I am so thrilled that an artist, a living master artist who actually works with me and helps me to improve my artwork, is part of this art movement with Sotheby's and the Art Renewal Center. I mean, it's a huge win for us representational artists. It's just going to help really put us on a level playing field with the conceptual art world and let us earn a living and make the same degree level of sales that have been happening for the conceptual art world like for the past 20-30 years. It's just been unbelievably unbalanced. So hopefully we are now going to have level playing fields. Sotheby's is going to continue to do this auction yearly, I believe, through the Art Renewal Center. So if you're not involved with the Art Renewal Center, it's something that you may want to consider. I am a member. I like to go there and look in their museum. You can get really high quality images to do master copies from. And also it's a great place to study the living masters of today, so you can see the level of art that is being collected and is considered the top of the representational art world field. So you can see or make goals based on, I have several artists that I've selected from the Art Renewal Center Museum, living master artists, who I aspire to be as good as someday. And that's why you guys are with me here on this journey. You're watching me practice and learn and put what I've learned into use, and hopefully I'm helping you improve your art and bring you to the level of master artists as well, along with me. Okay, back to my painting. I'm working on this hand. You may have noticed that I had initially laid down some position of a hand that wasn't quite working. So I realized I have a hand. Why don't I take a photograph of my hand in the position that I need and not try to just guess at it, because the reference material that I was using for this, the hand was not doing what this hand is doing in my painting. So I did that. I took a photo and I used it to help me get the anatomy and the drawing correct. So with a little bit of trial and error, push and pull, the hand will come to a finish and look good, I think. So one of the things I've been learning is that I need to use more paint when I'm painting. So I'm laying down paint pretty thick these days, and every now and then I like to just knock it down smooth with the fan brush, but I don't leave it smooth. I usually go back in on top of that and add more paint again. So every now and then you'll see the fan brush come flying across and that's why. And also it helps with glare, depending on where your lighting is set up. Sometimes you might be getting a glare, so you can just lightly knock it down with the fan brush, and that usually gets rid of the glare too. So I don't want anything too like photorealistic in this painting. I really wanted to keep it very painterly, like a dreamy kind of effect, kind of misty looking. I was working on creating more atmosphere in this painting. That was the other goal, and I feel like I was able to do that. We'll talk a little bit more about that as you see how I go over the background. But with like the hands and the more face and detail areas, I'm just keeping it pretty loose. Hey guys, make sure you check out all the cool free stuff I have for you in the description, and there'll be links there to some of the Art Renewal Center and the auction things that I mentioned previously. Okay, I'm adding the atmosphere now. And the way I've done this is I laid down initially, as you can see, really saturated color. A lot of yellow, a lot of orange, a lot of that burnt orange, deep reddish color in the shadow areas. So in order to create this atmosphere, I mixed up, as you can see on the palette there, this sort of beige tan color. And I put in some of the walnut oil to keep it more transparent. And I'm just lightly brushing it and pulling it straight down over top of that tree area, and it's just taking away some of that saturation. Now what I'm thinking I want to do is keep the areas saturated and clear that are closer to the figure and the horse. And what that's going to do is pull the viewer's eye to her and the horse right into the center of the painting by kind of fading out to a more misty, lighter, less saturated areas towards the outer parts of the painting. You can draw the viewer into the center of the painting, and that's what we want to do. I want to pull him into the center and keep him swirling through the horse, through the face, back around through the tail, back up where the reins is, and then again they loop, just continuously looping through the painting, and hopefully never leaving my painting to go to another one. So this is the first edition, as I mentioned, into the Western series called Heading West. Its title is The Blue Dress. It was inspired by T. Gainsborough's Boy in Blue, The Blue Boy. And I'm going to be continuing with this Western genre. Next week I'm going to paint for you a portrait of up-close face of a really cool cowboy image that I took. And then we'll move back into probably a more formal painting after that. But stay tuned, lots more portrait stuff coming at you. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.